All right. Um, mm-mm. I will get us started. Hello everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tiffany Goodwin Van Camp. I'm the Executive Director of American Friends of Combatants for Peace. For those of you who know us already and have been joining us for these talks and have been with us for some time, thank you for your continued solidarity. For those who are new, first, welcome to the movement. Welcome to Combatants for Peace. I want to share a little bit about who we are for those who are new. Combatants for Peace is a joint Palestinian Israeli community working in solidarity to end the occupation, discrimination, and oppression. We believe in a future where all people, from the river to the sea, live in peace with dignity, justice, and liberty. The movement was founded almost 20 years ago by Israeli combat soldiers and Palestinian fighters who chose to lay down their weapons and to link arms with one another to non-violently co-resist the occupation and to begin to mobilize a joint community committed to equality, peace, and justice for all people. They're the only movement in history founded by opposing members of an active conflict, and as such, they've been nominated 2 times for a Nobel Peace Prize. The movement is rooted in the values of nonviolent resistance, and they are showing the world, even now, that there is another way. Our talk today is about solidarity as a path to liberation. Um, I want to thank our courageous speakers, Suleiman Khatib. He is our Palestinian co-founder of the movement. Avner Wishnitzer. He's our Israeli co-founder of the movement. Rana Salman is the Palestinian executive director of Combatants for Peace. And Eszter Koranyi, is the co-founder of our Israeli Leadership Programs for Youth. I also want to thank our moderators, A'ida Shibli. She is an Indigenous Bedouin Palestinian activist, a core member of Defend the Sacred Alliance, which is a movement rooting activism and sacred action, and a co-worker of Tamera in Portugal, which is an eco-village and peace research and education center. And then we have our longtime friend, Stephen Apkon, who, if you've ever watched the documentary about Combatants for Peace, it's called Disturbing the Peace. He's actually the director and the producer of that documentary. He's also the co-founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Reconsider. They focus on responding to today's biggest challenges. So before I turn things over to Ida and Stephen, I don't want to say too much on the front end because together, they've prepared a practice for us, a centering practice, and they're going to provide context for our talk. So, in terms of housekeeping, and then we'll go ahead and let them start leading this time. Our talk today is an hour and a half. It will be recorded, and we will email a link to the recording by tomorrow so that you can watch it again or share it with others. We don't have the chat room fully open because we want to honor the voices and the sharing of our speakers. However, we do want to receive your questions because we'll share them with the moderators who will share them with the speakers. So to ask your questions, you can send them to me and you can also send them to Lindsay. I think Lindsay's profile says Lindsay Combatants for Peace. Something else that we want to do today that is new and different, and was something offered by Ida and Stephen, is if you would, during our time today, uh, provide one word in the chat to Lindsay and myself, a word that you would like to, a word or a value that you would like to bring to this space and give as an offering. And Ida and Steve will share those words, some of those words at the end of our talk. So with that, I would like to hand this over to our moderators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. I'm in Portugal and it's evening here, and I want to honor each one of you who is joining this talk. And thank you for the trust ahead that you are giving to us. And I do see that more people are still joining us, and we will have this pleasure of being together in times of war to be an hour and a half through this medium that brings us and to use it as bridge. And it's so important from my culture. We ritualize startings and endings. And I want to bring this culture also to us here by really taking it that this hour and a half is a ceremony where we come into deep listening to each other, allowing people who are in the land to speak their voices. And so I would like that we go all together, who feels comfortable. It's an invitation to, there's a way that you can find your legs directly to Mother Earth. If you are able to take the right hand, the doing hand, if you can, if you like, to follow this invitation to bring it to your heart and to take your left hand, connection from the heart, and to bring it to your base chakra. And let us take 2 minutes in silence. And in these 2 minutes of silence, where I will hit a gong, a singing bowl for us, in these 2 minutes of silence, you present yourself with your intention. Why are you here? Why do you join this talk? Which light of you want to give to us? What do you want to achieve in the end of this hour and a half? And I want to remember that when life created me, has gifted me a certain amount of light. I want to use this light for this moment because the darkness is just so huge. So here's a singing bowl that was forged for reconciliation. And let us take 2 minutes in silence. I will call you in. Thank you. Thank you for this common silence. May it awake the light forces to be with us in this talk so we can be a gift for life. And I hand it to Stephen, a brother that I got to know in the last 2 days. Thank you for being in my life now in the last 2 days.
You, A'ida, and thank you all for being here. We'd actually like to open today with a poem that we would ask Eszter and Rana to share with us.
Mahmoud Darwish. She said, "When will we meet?" I said, "A year after the war ends." She said, "When will the war end?" I said, "When we meet."
تقول متى نلتقي؟ أقول بعد عام وحرب. تقول متى تنتهي الحرب؟ أقول حين نلتقي.
Thank you so much. I'd like to share with you a statement that was issued from Combatants for Peace over the last couple of days. We Palestinian and Israeli activists call upon all sides to end the war and cease all forms of violence, and most urgently to stop the targeting of civilians. Having taken part in this century-old violent conflict, we know its price and its futility. Today, more than any other time in the past, we maintain there is no military solution to the conflict. Violence breeds violence. Revenge fuels revenge. As Mahatma Gandhi notably said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. That is actually exactly the situation right now, with so many people drowning in pain and loss, and so many blinded by hatred and revenge. Even in the heart of darkness, we will not lose sight of our path. Despite the violence, because of the violence, we hold on to our belief that both people can live in this land in safety, dignity, and liberty. At this difficult time, we need to foster solidarity among those who are committed to nonviolence, human rights, justice, and our collective liberation. Let us stand alongside each other and speak our minds and hearts. Let our joint community and our collective actions define the road ahead. In unity, we call upon all Israelis, Palestinians, as well as the international community, not to give up on humanity and to respect the lives of all equally. We urge both peoples to stand for life and to oppose ideologies of hate, discrimination, and supremacy that have led us all to destruction and death. We call for an end to the occupation which perpetuates this conflict and for a real political solution promoted and supported by the international community. Let us show the world that even now there is another way. Even in the heart of darkness, there is still hope. A statement from Combatants for Peace. A'ida, I turn it to you.
Thank you. Our intention by reading this statement is knowing that often our peace work, in times of choice, we aspire to our highest vision, and we collect words that speak our soul, our mission, our values, and then comes a test. And we are in times of test. We are in times of big tests. So reading this purpose of and this mission of this organization, which is actually, I want to tell you that on Saturday, the 7th of October, when the war broke, Immediately, the 8th of October, I called my community here and we watched the movie. And only today I understood that Stephen, you're director of that movie, of the Combatants for Peace, disturbing the peace. That was the movie that I called my community, and where a lot of Israelis and Palestinians were shocked by what happened. And looking to your actions, looking to your organization, reminded us of being in a supportive community, a safe community in Portugal, to take a position for life. So that's why I am honored to grant the trust from you together with Stephen, to hold this space for you. And myself, Palestinian, who all my life stood for justice, for reconciliation, for resisting the occupation, and in the same time creating a life that deserves living. A life that I can say all my life I called for justice. And in my recent lives, I'm understanding that sometimes justice stands in the way of reconciliation. And if you would ask me, what do I want more, justice or reconciliation? I say it very loud. I want reconciliation. There's an image inside of me that holds life as a love affair, holds planet Earth as a paradise. It's not in the beyond, it's here and now. And I want to be a gift for paradise here and now. And my whole identity in this war is under test. So this hour and a half will be also a comfort for my soul, to anchor my love in a mission and in people who are acting on the ground in a different way. So I thank you. I thank you for this. I thank you for taking stand for life despite the pain. And my call and my invitation for the international community who is joining us. I mean, I keep seeing the number growing, and I feel so honored for that you are all showing with solidarity. Thank you for that. Each one of us present in this call, each one thought, feelings has an influence. As an Indigenous person, I know that we are all interconnected, interdependent on each other. Every thought, every emotion that any one of us create and have has an influence. So I want to anchor us in the values that brought you to this talk. I want to anchor us in prayer. I want to anchor us on that we are needed. We are in times of so much test, and we are needed. I'm a mother. And I changed all my life and keep changing it. So that daughter, I have one daughter that Allah gave me, that she has better life. She believes in peace, that she lives in abundance, that she and every child deserve. And I dedicate my life for creating a life that it is good and fair for everyone. So I welcome us in this this talk. This topic is our material. Nobody here is just observing. No one is only witnessing. It's our material. So let's take care of our material in the best that we can show up. Yeah. So far, my words for for this privilege that we have here to listen to each other, deep listening. Stephen?
Shukran, A'ida. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to be in this space with you, with everybody on this call. These past weeks have been unimaginable. The numbers of people killed, the thousands more injured, the hostages with families traumatized, the people displaced from their home amidst the trauma of an ongoing war. More than 20 journalists killed, 59 UN workers. Generations of children being traumatized, including through horrific images in the media. This trauma has been felt internationally with protests and counter-protests and all that is going on in our own communities and in our own hearts. It's affecting each of us deeply. We are grieving, we are angry, we are confused. It struck me this morning that we are a week away from the 28th anniversary of the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. Unimaginable. In these times, we can struggle to find common ground, to have the more complex conversations, and to hold what we believe is possible, especially in times of trauma. And that is where Combatants for Peace comes in. I had the honor of spending almost 3 years with combatants, including during a Gaza war, documenting their work in the film Disturbing the Peace, which we have, as of yesterday, released for free on the internet. What I learned from the combatants was profound. I've learned the hard work of making peace and standing together. That standing together in spaces like this is a heroic act, is a sacred act. I've learned the importance of nonviolence in the work to end the occupation. And I've learned the importance of not dehumanizing anyone, because when we do, we dehumanize ourselves. I have learned from them the ability to have complex conversations, and today is indeed one of them. The ability to hold so many feelings within us, the anger, the rage, the sadness, the grief, also the hope and the love and the light of what's possible. And that's what brings us here today. I am very grateful to you, A'ida. I'm very grateful to all of the people from the American Friends of Combatants for Peace for hosting this, and indeed for all of the Combatants for Peace in the region and around the world who are holding the possibility of what we can still hold on to even in these most challenging times. I'd like to turn now to our combatants on the panel. And we have some questions for you that we'd like to ask you to share. And as Tiffany said, for those in the audience, you can please add anything you'd like in the chat. Avner, I'd like to start with you and then turn to Rana. And you are indeed one of the co-founders of this movement. You're somebody who thinks very deeply about this work and has been committed for such a long time. I'd like to ask you, what are the challenges that are being faced by you and the movement right now, by you personally and the movement, and how are you navigating them all, if you would share with us?
So good evening, and thank you, Steve and A'ida and Tiffany, and thank you all for joining. We are living through a terrible storm. So powerful that it threatens to break us on a personal, the most personal level, and to disorient and disperse us as a political community. And I'd like to talk about challenges in both these levels. So on the personal level, like so many of our activists, I was devastated by Hamas's brutal attack on October 7th. The scale and the unspeakable atrocities, the fact that I know some of the victims or families of victims, it all make it incredibly hard to cope with. And then came Israel's retaliation, which continues as we speak, with thousands of civilians killed and children still buried under the rubble, with human suffering in Gaza that is beyond description. And I think this is my and maybe our first challenge in Combatants for Peace, to be open to all this suffering, to the pain of all people, and to be able to hold it, to hold this emotional complexity, and also the political complexity that led us to this disaster. I think most people in both societies tend to shut down at times like this, because the pain in each side is just unbearable, and we all feel it. And many people don't want and maybe cannot cope with the suffering of the other side. You know, some people say, let them suffer, you know, bomb them, kill them, they deserve it. And dehumanization is now peaking. And the media takes things and make it worse by creating completely separate realities. If you watch Arab channels, you will have a vague idea at most of what happened on October 7th. They would spare you many of the atrocities. If you watch Israeli media, you will have a very vague idea of what's going on in Gaza. Everything is generalized, you know, generic information that is designed in many ways not to inform. And for us in Combatants for Peace, on the most personal level, this shutting down is simply impossible. After almost 20 years of working together, I cannot not feel, because I know not only Israelis who have been hard hit, but also Palestinians. And holding all this anxiety and pain and frustration is extremely difficult. But this very sensitivity to human life is also our engine and our generator. And I would say that this very sensitivity and joint work after all these years has really expanded our sense of self. So I'm an Israeli. I'm rooted in my society. I'm deeply concerned by its future, but I am also part of this joint community. And this joint community has become part of my own self. To bomb them is to bomb Souli and Rana. It is to bomb myself. And in these terrible days, Souli and Rana and Jamil and all the others have been with me all the time. Not only when I actually speak to them, and we speak a lot these days, but all the time. They walk with me, they console me. They are in many ways part of me. So this is more than solidarity. Like A'ida said, this is interdependency. This is ultimately a whole that is bigger than the sum of its part, and it is a source of power. So in a sense, the challenge is also the cure, in a sense, on the personal level. And the personal is, of course, connected to the collective level, to us as a community. So we try to enhance these personal connections, especially now, and to affirm our commitment to each other and to our principles. And that's an important point. We are a political movement. We do not invest in our community of activists merely for the sake of its existence or to ease our personal pain. We do it so that we can stand together for our beliefs and make our voice heard. And that brings me to the final challenge, which I would like to mention now. It is extremely polarized reality here and around the world. And our search for common ground is now more difficult than ever before. While we remain committed to one another and to our values, about which we'll talk more later, talking to our societies has only become more difficult. People are so angry and fearful and hateful. But here and there, we also see change. We see people that are drawn to us despite of the war, or rather because of the war and the suffering, because we represent an alternative. And we hold on to this alternative. We remain committed to the same principles, and they are our compass. that guides us through this storm, this storm, and our north has not changed. It has not changed.
Thank you for that, Avner. Rana, could we ask you the same question?
I just want to say thank you for holding this space for us so that we can share our feelings and our thoughts and have this conversation. And I truly appreciate, I feel you, A'ida, and your pain, because we're all going through the same pain right now. We're all still mourning and grieving about the events. What happened in October 7th, it was kind of a shock for all of us. We still needed time to understand what is happening and why it happened, and take it all in. And then the events continued rapidly to just escalate. And it was a shock for us that we needed, as a movement, also like to take care of ourselves in the beginning and then start our conversations. I also want to point out regarding the challenges that even before October 7th, as a joint movement, we were going through difficult challenges this year, especially with having one of the most right-wing Israeli government in history, which led into many military incursions within the West Bank, an increase of the settler violence in the West Bank, especially in Area C, an escalation of violence. January of this year was like the deadliest for Palestinians, but right now we see that the death toll is just still rising up. And I hate to say that, but those are not numbers. Those are human beings. Those are people who had dreams and accomplishments and families. Those were mothers, those were children. And this is what we need to think about. On individual levels, we're all heartbroken by the events. We didn't even have the chance to. We are still like going through this trauma of what we see. We keep seeing these horrific images coming from Gaza and from the kibbutz, and we're still trying to understand it. Before, we used to say that the biggest challenge for us was working in this society and having to deal with these social and attitudes and perceptions, like for Palestinians to be accused of normalization and for Israelis to be accused of traitors or signing with the other. But the last 3 weeks of these tragic events have even created bigger challenges for us. The call for nonviolence has become so weak in both societies. There is a huge gap now between the Israeli and the Palestinian society. Unfortunately, there is now mistrust, there is hatred, there is incitement to violence. And even like in the shared communities, like even within Israel, we have seen different violence coming up also. For example, just yesterday, there were like Jewish protesters in front of the Netanya Academic College, in front of a housing dorm for Arab students. And they were protesting in anger and chanting death to Arabs. And this is affecting all communities. There is so much anger between the societies. Even we have seen so many hate crimes around the world, like burning a synagogue in Libya, killing a Palestinian young boy in the US. This is affecting everyone. And I'm sure now it takes a lot of courage, for example, for an Israeli to just protest now in the streets of Tel Aviv asking for a ceasefire. It's a brave thing to do right now, because the circumstances that we are dealing with is not normal. We have never experienced something like that before. And I understand it might be difficult, like, to stay committed to nonviolence when we are seeing every day this kind of death and destruction and arrests and this killing of innocent civilians. But we also realize that we need to stick together and stick to our values of nonviolence. Since the beginning of this war, as Avner mentioned, we have conducted several conversations, some uninational conversations, some were joint conversations. And despite they were very difficult, and we definitely had disagreements, we're also different in our of how we think, how we see things. But the only thing that we have in common is that our core values, that we do not disagree about, our commitment to nonviolence, and that we want everybody to live in this land in peace and dignity and justice and equality.
Wow. Thank you, Rana. Thank you, Avner, also for these direct voices of the challenges that you are going through, and going through it personally and as a movement. And I want to move to our second question. And I know that your movement is anchored in values, anchored in agreements. And what are the values that's grounding your work, also personally and also as a movement? And what is the common ground that which you are standing on together? Avner, you say that whenever something happens, you turn to your comrades, to your partners. How these challenges are shaping the values that you created together? What is your common ground? How do you deal with it personally and also as a movement? Yeah. How do you maintain the work? And I want to invite Souli, Eszter, and also Apkon to answer this question each in 5 minutes. We agreed before that we have a way to point the 5 minutes with a gong, but with the rush of the words coming through, the temper, and I totally understand the situation that you are in. But nevertheless, look at me, I will try to say, hey, hello, it's 5 minutes. Yeah. I'm curious to hear from you. Souli, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, A'ida, Steve, and everyone joined us tonight. Really, I'm really very emotional to feel you all and the energy, the words that coming out of everyone here, the presence of people, the care that I feel. Also being in touch with the reality, what's happening right now, just that's, I want to recognize this is a historical moment for us all, actually. Thank you for the question about the values and the morality. And Tiffany mentioned we almost around 18, 20 years in togetherness. Many of us whom came from a fighting background, where some of us, I don't want to generalize, but I speak about myself. I been there, where we speak about, us or them, and I've been in jail for 10 years, and many of you knows. And the first value I want to highlight in Combatants for Peace is really a value I personally learned in jail, during jail time, with the hunger strike and organizing and solidarity. And it's maybe important to mention that many of the values that we were speaking about and teaching ourselves about is really important as a reminder now at this time, when we talk about nonviolence and togetherness and the shared space of Palestinian Israelis, especially the one that took active role in the conflict with the Israelis that were in the army, like Avner and other people, and people like myself that took a very active role in our armed resistance. It's very important to say now that I see there is no military solution again and again. We're just reaching the same conclusion. And when I speak about the values that we're talking about, it's really important for me to mention, I personally, with all the feelings that you guys mentioned, the sadness and the shakiness also that happened, the challenges that Avner and Rana also spoke about, the challenges that we face as a joint group now, like every other group. I feel personally, despite all the bloodshed that's happening now, a lot of grounding to the ground, to the land. and being in touch with this reality, I feel these values are tested now. And it's really important for me to call everyone to remember that it's not an issue to speak about the values when we are in comfort zone or comfort time. Rather, the opposite, actually, when we're touched, hurt, personally or collectively, that's where our values really have to come. And I really feel proud, despite we are not a huge amount of people. For me, I feel really strongly now the people that shown us during the last few weeks, and it's unfolding, so we're gonna see more, unfortunately. For me, my decision was and still and reaffirm the partnership between us in Combatants for Peace and in the wider activist circle is really now in a very historical moment where I see some people are fully committed, despite the pain that Avner and Rana and everyone speaking about it. And myself also, I have friends in Gaza, I have Israeli friends that their friends has been kidnapped and so on. And we live in West Bank, as you know, also, it's like on fire from settler violence and from the army. But still, I feel this is really the time to remind myself and everyone. Some people maybe at this time, they go back to their national tribe, and the only way is us and them dividing again, military solution. And we've been there, and we're speaking about no military solution. And really, I really feel a lot of love and committed to people that really showing strengthen now to stay in front of their, even our communities that also like in fire. It's not simple. We're standing against our societies somehow, but I feel this voice is really loud now and can offer alternative to other people also than the voice of darkness or us or them. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Souli. Yeah, for the togetherness and the non-violence. And I recognize that you are sitting in the kitchen, your kitchen in Ramallah, and I see the heart behind you. And it's a simple red heart, and it's love. Thank you for these moments of pain. So much love is needed. And I would turn to Eszter to answer the same question. What are your values, the shared values that you have? What is the common ground? How do you maintain them in these moments, personally and also as a movement?
Thank you, A'ida, also from me for holding this space for us. I personally feel that for a long time, this evening is giving me strength and hope that that it's possible to get out from this war and make this place better and peaceful for everyone. So I was invited to talk about the young people that I have the honor to work with. Also, when we prepared this conversation, Avner was mentioning that himself and Souli, they belong to the founder generation, and Rana and I are somewhere in between, being part of the movement for some years now. And the youth, they are new. They are the ones that just come out from, most of them from the very militaristic education system in Israel. Some open their eyes and choose not to enroll to the army and go through very, very difficult times in order to get out from it. And some even rolling to the army, and somewhere during their service, they realize that this is not the way. And then it's obviously not all of them that come to our program, but some of them find us. And we see that now since the 7th of October, our alumni group is very, very active. Like, they are friends anyway, and we time to time meet or on Zoom or physically. But now we have a lot of conversations going on they are as well in shock, and because they are very young and still their identity is just forming, and all of a sudden, out of pain and loss and all this storm of violence, they have to like question themselves, questions that maybe we would rather not ask ourselves ever. So us, the team, we offer them a lot of talks, which is, I think, very important, and it's I call it humanity, like just to be together, to have a place where people can share. So far for our alumni, we did only national talks, and we of course invite them to the binational talks that we hold within CFP. And the other two values I put is solidarity and peace, just as simple as it is. One of the participants said, for me, it's a very strong sentence. He said, until the 7th of October, and he's an Israeli, I was a freedom fighter for the freedom of Palestine and Palestinians. And now I define myself a peace seeker, because I understood that only giving freedom to one people is not enough. We need peace. And he's like 20 something, and he shared this in one of the meetings we had. So I bring this this sentence with me. And what is, I think, beautiful, and I personally take a lot of courage and a lot of inspiration from the young people that we work with, is that nevertheless their confusion and their hardship going through this, and also like some of them, you know, they just moved to another city to start their studies, and then everything is canceled, and they are without friends and without family, and you know, it's like also things that young people face normally, but then it's like comes in a very strong context. So they decide to act, and they act to everything that seems to them a human act, that seems that it will help forgotten or not forgotten communities in need. So, and they also share that they just go and do everything that they feel that it's right, that it's human, that it supports, that it gives peace, a better place to exist here. So it can be supporting the Bedouin villages that are in the south of Israel, and they are, because they are unrecognized, they don't have shelters, they don't have a lot of things that we luckily do in most parts of the country. The internally displaced Israelis, they walk with Palestinians in the mixed cities who are scared to leave their house because of violence of Jewish people living in their neighborhoods, who are also, we can also say, for example, in East Jerusalem, that they are settlers, and settler violence in the West Bank, which is not something that we really hear, but it's very, very strong also in these days, when no one is focusing on them. So the communities that are anyway endangered in Jordan Valley, in the South Hebron Hills, suffer very much now. And some of them even have the courage to go there and walk with the shepherds, or they collect food and all the things that they need in Jerusalem and bring it there, stand with the families of the kidnapped people who are kept in Gaza. So they just do a lot of things, and it also gives me strength to go and do it, like not to ask questions. So that's my answer.
Oh, Eszter, thank you. Yeah, it just moved me now, personally, just to hear about the young generations still have this choice to understand that there's no liberation for one nation unless we are all liberated. So I'm not a peace seeker for Palestinians, but a peace wanting for Palestinians, but a peace seeker, a global peace seeker. Thank you. It brings a lot of hope inside of me, and thank you for this work with them. And I will turn to Avner. asking the same question. Values, challenges, how do you ground them in these moments?
Yeah, so I want to focus on one value that I think encompasses many others within it, and we keep saying that we insist on holding on to our humanity, that this is our compass, and this is not some hazy abstract notion. I mean, everybody say humanity, humanity. For us, it is neither a nicety nor a liability. I mean, it's a profound principle, and moreover, it's a political project, and that's the most important thing. It is a political vision, a political project that we strive to embody in the present, in the very way we work together, stand together. So this vision does not efface, it does not erase the power asymmetry between Israelis and Palestinians. And there's an occupier and there's an occupied. So this is not to erase that, but rather to challenge it. To stand together for humanity is for us to value all human lives as equally sacred, and then to resist, and Steve mentioned it in the beginning, to resist all ideologies and mechanisms that subject one group of people to another, to the violence or to the oppression of another group. So there are very clear consequences or notions that are derived from this very basic understanding. And I said it's a compass. So I'll give a few examples of how it guides us in this storm. For example, it guides us to insist that Israeli apartheid does not justify the crimes of Hamas, nor do the crimes of Hamas justify Israeli apartheid, or calls for ethnic cleansing that are everywhere now. And I will add in brackets, because we have to add it, that what's happening now in Area C, I mean, this is an urgent call for all of us, is crazy, and it's ethnic cleansing as we speak right now. Settlers coming into houses, threatening people, leave or you die. So I'm saying we need to keep our eyes open all the time in many different directions. So I say this does not justify that or whitewash. One crime does not whitewash the other, and rivaling forms of violence do not even out. They just perpetuate and reinforce each other. So we should insist that we do not accept nor excuse the indiscriminate slaughter, kidnapping, or torture that is performed by Hamas, and we hold the perpetrators accountable. We should not accept or excuse or paper over the bombing of civilians in the thousands in Gaza, nor turn a blind eye to this systematic oppression of the Palestinians that has been going on for decades, including this displacement that just intensifies now. And here too, accountability is crucial. So this is just an example of how this basic principle guides us, right? So it equally means to alert the world to the terrible suffering of the victims of Hamas attack and the hostages, children included, that are just held in Gaza. But also, as I said, and I repeat saying, what's going on now in Area C in East Jerusalem, and to really call or insist on the stopping this targeting of civilians everywhere. And finally, as Souli said, to remind us all that we need a political solution to this conflict. All of this is derived from our commitment to humanity. Finally, maybe to state the obvious once again, to break this cycle of violence requires undoing the causes of its, if not its inception, but its perpetuation, and first and foremost, the occupation, but also extremist, dehumanizing ideologies that we find on both sides that work to dehumanize constantly the other side.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarity, for the, you know, Homo sapiens, we were gifted with this ability to formulate language. We better make poetry out of this language. And not often we are able to make poetry, but at least when we are able to communicate, we speak clear values, we speak clear intentions. So I want to amplify what you spoke about, the roots, the causes of all this conflict, that this escalation comes from a continuum, from a context that we need to understand. So to stand for humanity in these times, understanding this big complex conflict, needs clarity, and I feel it in all of your voices. And I want, before going to the third question, to turn back again to all the people who are joining us more and more in the waiting room. And I personally am receiving messages from people that I didn't know that they are in this group, people that I know personally. So I feel also, as I am affected just like you, I feel warm. Thank you for the love that was expressed. And nevertheless, you have a different position being on the land now when all of this happening. So I want to to speak to the privilege. I'm in Portugal, my body is safe, inshallah. And I want to turn to the people who are with us, and knowing that maybe some of you are also in the land, but maybe most of you are internationals who are joining this this call. I want you to feel yourself, to take a breath, to allow all these talks and all these deep revelations from people on the ground to take it to your heart, to feel it in your body. We are speaking about life and death, and a lot of death. We are speaking about thousands of people being killed. Our presence here is to end this cycle of violence. So I want us all to be present, to be full-hearted with this conversation. So I will take just half a minute silence in this moment, in this the speakers and the listeners. It's our material, all of us. Take a moment to ground yourself in the ethics and the values that these people showed us while being on the ground. Thank you. And staying also with international solidarity movement, there's the international community that is also supporting your work and others in this call. when you turn to the international community, what do you need from them? These are, as I said, moments of test for our values, our mission statements, and this is a big test. What do you need from the international community? How they can support what you are seeking? How can we all seek what you are seeking? And I would invite Rana and then Sulaiman and then Avner to answer this question. Rana.
Thank you, A'ida. Well, regarding solidarity, we have witnessed that in the last few weeks. It was, we have seen so many protests around the world, people storming the streets, raising their voices and asking for ceasefire. It was very inspiring and very powerful. And this is, it gave us a lot of strength to see the world, not the governments actually, that are asking for a ceasefire. And the only thing that made me sad is that to see some people taking sides in a war. The problem is that there is no winning side or a good side or a right side in a war. Both are wrong because both did wrong things, like killing innocent civilians and taking lives away. No one is right in a war. And we have even seen like a war in the social media, and we see some posts like anti-Jewish posts or anti-Muslim posts, or like posts like I stand with Israel. This is not exactly what we need right now. We need the international community to stand for common humanity. We need them to stand for justice, for equality, for dignity, for freedom, for peace for both people. And just to call for ceasefire and to stop this bloodshed. We don't want you to take sides, because when you do that, you kind of like dehumanize the other. And this is like, this is a big problem if this is what we are calling for. We have seen in the protest people singing slogans or shouting things that do not represent us as Palestinians and Israelis. These do not help our cause, because both people here, they want, after all these years, to find a common ground and to live in peace for our future generations. We have witnessed enough death and destruction on both sides. Thousands of people are being injured or killed or displaced. Some people are still held hostages in Gaza. The UN said there is no water or fuel or medical supplies, no food in Gaza. Over 8,000 people killed in Gaza right now. Most of them are children and women. And this is our collective responsibility now to act and to stop this humanitarian crisis. And it is a catastrophe, but what we need right now is to prioritize the human life. We need to make sure that the human life is sacred and it's equal for all. This is what we need the international community to put pressure on the government to ask for ceasefire now, because we don't want to lose more lives. We have experienced so much pain for the since October 7th, and the international community is still silent. And not the people, I mean, we have seen the people raising their voices, but the governments, and we know the power of people also like to make an influence over their governments. As also Eszter said, and Avner, there's so much happening in the West Bank while all the eyes of the world is on Gaza and the war. Just, I think today there have been 111 people killed in the West Bank. The last person was actually picking olives when he got shot. So you can imagine how unsafe it is now to be out, and how the feeling of fear from the other is just increasing. I live in Bethlehem now, and there is a blockade over the city. We can't move around. We can't even meet in person. That's why we do most of our meetings over Zoom. This is creating more separation also, and division and hatred, and the need to take revenge. But the question is, for how long? When you don't call for a ceasefire, we'll keep continuing this cycle of violence, which nobody wins at the end. There are families who are grieving and in pain, and some people are waiting to see if their children are safe or not, if they are alive or not. There are children still under the rubble in Gaza, and we are still thinking if we should act or not. This is like a humanitarian catastrophe, and if we reach this point and not considering human life as something sacred, then there is a problem with our values and in our how we see the world and how we act internationally. So this is an invitation also for our people who are attending tonight and for the international community to make pressure to stop the bloodshed right now in Gaza, so that we can also have a talk and find a political solution to what's happening. We said it so many times, whether in the movement or outside, we said there is no military solution to this conflict. And there should be real talks about how this can be solved, because otherwise every 2-3 years we will just live again the October 7th for both, for Palestinians and Israelis. And we don't want this to happen again. So this is an invitation for everyone to act and to take responsibility and do whatever you can also.
Thank you. Thank you also for the clarity. Human life is sacred. And if you allow me to add, all lives, also beyond human beings, is sacred. Every animal that is killed also in this bloodshed is important for me. And sorry if I'm adding from myself. Sacredness is something that is so needed, but thank you. And I would move to Souli, also the same question. What do you want? What do you need from the international community?
Yeah, thank you, A'ida. I also directly and clearly join Rana and Combatants for Peace and others that really sided with life and the needs of the people here right now is really a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. That's what we can do right now to save life of people. I want to also to say in the long term, of course, as we spoke many times, there is a really need to a historical reconciliation between both peoples that lives here from the river to the sea, which means a political solution in the end of the day. So we don't go into these rounds again and again. And maybe just to add a piece of information to what's happening right now, while people focusing on the immediate danger, on the war in Gaza, with thousands of people getting killed right now while we're speaking. There are also like almost we are talking about 10,000 Palestinians in jail. We have like 5,000 already were in jail for many years, some of whom they even don't have opportunity to be in a court, kids, women, all kinds. And the last 4,000 or 5,000 people are Gazans that were working in Israel before October 7, and they were thrown into West Bank, and then they've been arrested. And some organizations, human rights organizations, are trying to check what's their situation. So there is a human catastrophe happening actually in that sense. So the simplest thing to happen right now is really to push the international community in order to pressure for a ceasefire, for a prisoners exchange. I've been in jail and I know the meaning of being in jail, so I would love to see every prisoners from the Palestinian side, the 10,000 people, including the workers, and also the Israelis in Gaza, to be freed and go back to their families. And the other call also, even during wartime, we have witnessed that the international law has been used like with double standard. It's not really working. So I'm really inviting ourselves actually in this region to really go back to our roots of our culture and use the ancient wisdom of the tribal system, that even during war times, there are rules of humanity that you can see it during war times. And there's also a lot of shared values and platform that we carry through generations, what we call sulha, which is a reconciliation, that really could be used to solve this a century conflict. not just the current war. And this is really, I'm coming from a family that still practice that, and we speak about it a lot actually, to share the knowledge of that have a lot of beautiful actually values that can really serve the cause. It's not just the Western, with my respect, like the Western culture, it doesn't work everywhere. And we have to really respect our cultures, where we're coming from, especially the dehumanization in the Western media is so high, so big, and that's why there's a lot of anger here about that. I just want to mention this. And in the end, as we speak, all of us, like really as a believer of all lives sacred, no matter which side where we are. And we're talking about liberation and collective liberation. We are aware of the power dynamic and the historical trauma, the collective trauma. And that's why Combatants for Peace, in our small capacity, we do memorial ceremony, joint memorial ceremony to commemorate the victims of both sides, to humanize both sides. We commemorate the Nakba ceremony, the Palestinian catastrophe 48, which is denied. It's really important to recognize the history, not to live in the history, but to recognize the history and to recognize the equality among us all, and find, I believe, like what we do is not, as Avner mentioned, it's not really we're living in La La Land. We're living in the reality, and we're in touch with the reality, and we see what's happening. We understand everything that's happening around us here for now, and we understand the trauma and the pain and the sorrow that every one of us in this community is living in, and this conflict became super international right now. But also we don't lose sight, we don't lose hope. I believe what we do, as we say, since we are in the olive harvest season, which we are not allowed to do that actually, due to the apartheid regime here, due to the settler violence. We can't. My mom personally, like my family, and some of you has met my mom, by the way, Steve, A'ida, and others were in my mom's house. She can't go to her olive trees to pick the olive right now. And we're not really talking about small details, how the system playing our small details in every day. But we learn from the olive trees a lot of values. What we say, I'm trying to translate from Arabic. A'ida, زرعوا فأكلنا ونزرع فيأكلون. They planted the trees, we ate, and we plant the trees for the next generation to eat. So what we
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
our generation, and I personally remain firmly optimistic that other world is possible, other reality here is possible. And I have a lot of conversations during the movie with my brother Steve. What else, like, is there really other possibility than we know, reactive of fear? And I believe our freedom and liberation, and that's why I was in jail, for freedom. That's why I started my struggle personally, and many of us. Our freedom is really connected. And as Avner, Eszter, Rana, everyone spoke here, I've been in touch with Avner, like as a close friend, as a family, as a chosen family. I have my own family and my community, but I choose to build together, this community together. I've been in touch with everyone here, and Khin and others every day. And I quit Khin and finish here what he said. I carry a binational heart, and it's hard for me and for us to feel the pain in Gaza now, the blood of the ashes happening in Gaza right now, which is really painful, and everywhere, and not to feel the pain of my Israeli partner. And this is the true partnership right now. It shows itself in the test, in the real time. And that's why I feel honored to be part of the creation of the new. So let the old system destroy, and let's create a new system that we all feel alive, and togetherness, and abundance for everyone. And there is enough in the world to share. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a clear call for the international community for high and universal values. And if I would take something from what you are saying, is that when the heart is open and loving, it cannot be selective. You cannot love here and not love there. If you are like, it's a moment to check, do we really love? Because if you really love, you cannot be selective. And I want to close this last question with Avner. Again, what is your call for the international community? What do you need from them? What are you calling them for? Because I'm also part of that identity. Avner.
So I don't want to repeat what Souli and Rana said, so I will speak in more general terms. But as all of us said, some things are urgent and can be promoted by people around the world and should be promoted by people around the world. It's the hostages, it's the carnage that goes on. It's the violence against Palestinian in Area C, all of these things. But let me say something more general. What the way I see it around the world, what we see is just almost stupid, really. The way people clash with each other in this black and white, good guys versus bad guys kind of war, without any space for reflection, any space for empathy, any space for compassion. It's either us or them, right? And if you're not with us, you're against us. And I with pain, I say that parts of the left have become mirror image of the alt-right, and both sides exchange hollow statements that are based on flimsy knowledge of the situation on the ground, and everything is so simplistic, so dogmatic, and what is lost is us. It's just real human, actual human beings that live here, and I call upon all of us to refuse, and I quote Souli here, to refuse to participate in this propaganda war. Because, once again, as Rana said, this is premised on dehumanizing whole communities. And what we need is rehumanization, not dehumanization. And so we hope that people would reject these simplistic, unidimensional portrayals of reality that erase millions of people for the sake of argumentative clarity, and that more people will hold on to complexity and embrace it, because this is humanity. It's incredibly complex. It cannot be reduced to good guys and bad guys. And right now, time of war, this is what most people tend to do. We should not give up to that tendency. We all feel it, right? We are part of that, but we have to resist it. And then finally, to begin any discussion with, not with either us or them, but with us and them, all of us together in this land. Let's begin from that point, right? When you begin from that point, the discussion must lead somewhere, right? It's a far more fruitful launchpad for any discussion. Both people existing here in freedom, security, and dignity. Now take it from here. How do we go about reaching this goal? And finally, support any group, any voice that roughly agrees with these lines. Support us morally and organizationally and financially, because it is not only about Israel-Palestine. It's not only about us. I think this call and this vision is relevant far beyond our region. It's relevant worldwide.
Avner, I so appreciate your clarity and your questioning of us, because we ultimately don't leave with the answers. We leave with more questions. I am so grateful to you and to Souli and to Rana and to Eszter, to A'ida, for opening your hearts. Your words fill my heart in this very difficult time. We have heard from each of you about the impact that we have in the international community through our words, through our actions, through our media. And there were many questions that were asked, and we have limited time. But I think maybe that's important, because the most important question to be asked is the question we must ask ourselves. And we alone can answer this, each of us. It is not about them on the land. It is about all of us. How do we stand in our own individual lives, in our communities, in this moment of humanity? How do we stand for nonviolence? How do we stand for the dignity and the freedom and the security of all people, of all people, of all life? How do we stand together with combatants for peace and stand together with love? And before we turn this over to Tiffany, A'ida, thank you so much. You're indeed a sister, and I'd like to offer to everybody who's here with us and standing together, I'd like to offer you your words, not ours. These are the words that you put in the chat during this conversation, the values that you called each other to: friendship, equanimity, humanity, liberation, empathy, understanding, atonement, compassion. All is one heart, hope, healing, forgiveness, choose life, connection, nonviolence, safety, re-understanding, forgiveness, friendship, family, miracle, a paradigm shift. Life is precious. Liberation, connection, choose life, all is one, and love. With that, we turn this back over to you, Tiffany. Thank you so much to everybody for being here, and thank you to Rana, to Eszter, to Souli, and to Avner, and to all who stand with you.
Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, Steve and A'ida. How did I get the job of closing? It's hard to keep it together. My tears are one of being deeply moved by who you all are and inspired, touching on the tenderness of my own humanity, because you help all of us do this. And this work that you do, we've heard it, it's organizational, it's political. It's also a spiritual work, however we define that, but it is very transcendent. Avner, you said it too, that it's more than just about Israel-Palestine. It's, this is a time for all of us. And Steve, you're speaking about the questions we can answer ourselves. It's personal. It's the work we do in our hearts, in our communities, internationally, in our homes with our families. and how that translates globally into our systems. And thank you for helping us to do an internal work today because we all need it. A'ida, thank you for framing this as a ceremony. This is a ceremony, and it's very challenging and healing and compelling. I do want to invite everyone on this call. As Avner shared, one way that you can support us is by supporting the movement. We are a 501c3 nonprofit funded almost entirely through the donations of individuals. We don't get government funding. We don't tend to get funding from businesses. Really, it's people like you who are on this call who fuel and make the movement possible. So please consider giving a donation to the cause so that they can continue this work and it can grow. And finally, we are going to close with a poem. Our first poem was an Arabic poem from Muhammad Darwish. We have a Hebrew poem from Leah Goldberg, and Rana and Avner are going to read it to us to close us out. And everybody on this call, we thank you for your participation, the words you shared, your light, your hearts. A'ida, did you want to say something?
I said it's Mahmoud Darwish. In Arabic, the names are so important. So Mahmoud.
Thank you. Thank you for your correction. Thank you.
He's our national poet.
Yes. And so with that, if you guys can close this with the poem.
Okay, I will start with the English version. The poem is called You Will Walk in the Fields. Will days ever come in forgiveness and grace, and you will walk in the field? Walk as a simple rambler, your bare feet caressed by clover leaves, or pricked by the stubble of wheat, the prickling so sweet. Or the rain will befall you, its drops bounding fresh, on your shoulders, your breast, your neck, and your head. And you will walk the wet field, peace spreading within you, like light at the skirts of a cloud. And you will breathe in the smell of the furrow in holy calm. You will see the sun in the puddle's golden mirror, and all things are simple and alive. You may touch them, and it's allowed, it's permitted to love. You will walk in the field by yourself, unscathed by the blaze of the fires, on roads bristling with dread and with blood. And true to your heart, you will again be yielding and humble, as a blade of a grass, as one of humankind.
Read it in Hebrew. This is a poem that I like very much. האומנם עוד יבואו ימים בסליחה ובחסד, ותלכי בשדה, ותלכי בו כהלך התם, ומחשוף כף רגלך ילטף בעלי האספסת, או שלפי שיבולים ידקרוך ותמתק קירתם, או מטר ישיגך בעדת טיבותיו הדופקת, על כתפייך, חזך, צווארך וראשך רענן, ותלכי בשדה הרטוב וירחב בך השקט, כאור בשולי הענן. ונשמת את ריחו של התלם, נשום ורגוע, וראית את השמש בראי השלולית הזהוב, ופשוטים הדברים וחיים, ומותר בם לנגוע, ומותר לאהוב, ומותר לאהוב. את תלכי בשדה לבדך, לא נצרבת בלהט, השרפות בדרכים שסמרו מאימה ומדם, וביושר לבב שוב תהי ענווה ונכנעת, כאחד הדשאים, כאחד האדם. Thank you.